And welcome back to the Catholic Convert Show. It is finally Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. I'm Jeff. That handsome devil over there is Ed. And we're going to kick it off today. Ed, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing great. It's like sunny and 87 here in the greater South Jersey area. It's going to be hot again tomorrow and hot again the day after that. So we're getting ready for some summer action over here. But I'm doing fine, doing great.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same things over here. It's like playing it, dancing around in the 90s. And I'm like, you know what? About time to go to the lake. But luckily, I work for me and I don't have to go to the lake on the weekends when it's packed. I can go on like Thursday afternoon while everybody else is at work. So might be fun. Take the kids out.
Stop,
But yeah, I hate the heat.
stop your.
I do. Like the heat's fine if I'm, like on a mountain somewhere and I'm just sweating or I'm, running or working out or something. But just to be just hot for no reason, I hate it. That's why I moved out to the desert. And especially here, like I know it's humid in Jersey, but it's not nearly humid in Jersey as it is here in South Carolina. It,
Hmm, I don't know. I might have to argue that one with you. It's
no,
the
I'm,
current
you walk
humidity here
outside
is
here.
112%. So
Yeah, you walk outside here and you're instantly sweating because it feels hotter than a spoon at Bobby Brown's house. Absolutely ridiculous.
whoa.
Oh, so we got a guest coming on next week.
But
Gonna
it's like,
wait to
and
reveal
it's the
his
thing. But you
name.
were out in the desert where it was a dry heat, right? I mean,
Oh, don't give me that.
I never get hot is hot, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
can't tell
hot's
me.
hot.
I love when people in Phoenix will say, "Yeah, it's 114, but it's a dry heat." Like, okay, well,
Good.
tell that to the third degree burns all over my body. I mean, I don't know.
Man, look, when I was doing construction out west, I did a lot of projects in Phoenix, especially it was primarily Tempe, Scottsdale, a couple of little spots in Chandler, and then of course Central Phoenix. And this is in the middle of the summer, probably 2000, I want to say 11, and you see like they don't make cars like they used to, right? Everything's like this weird fiberglass, plastic, composite. And so if you're in Phoenix and they've got the sun beating down on some of these windows and it's reflecting the beam like a fat kid at an anthill with a magnifying glass right onto the car, you see the side of the car start to like warp and deform a little bit from the heat cooking it. And you see the traffic cones from the road construction crews, they're just falling down because they're melting. People riding through, and their tires are melting, leaving these nasty, stringy, liquid rubber threads flying up onto the underbody of the car. It's ridiculous. Dry heat. Yeah, so's the sun. All right. The sun is dry heat.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't want to hear dry heat. But no, like I was saying, we got a guest coming on next week. This guy is a 30, just recently retired after 30 years as one of the most profound, prolific, I don't know the word for it in the medical field, cardiologists. Um, and he is an expert, a self proclaimed, and his sons proclaim it as well, expert on human a vitae, as well as areas of women's health, contraception, women immune systems, things like that. So he'll be our first guest to bring on. I'll leave everybody guessing as to who that is, but that should be a good time. I was impressed when I spoke with him yesterday because 30 years as a devout Catholic in the medical field, you know you had to come up on some of those morally ambiguous means justify the ends kind of things in the medical field. Maybe not as much in cardiology as you would in, some other fields, but you know as well as I do, there's a lot of, well, it's fine, it works, it doesn't matter the conscience of the person or the moral implications of whatever procedure or treatment is going to be done. Things that were created off of stem cells from aborted babies or whatever like that. So, how he navigated it and became as successful and renowned in his field as he did over 30 years without having to betray his faith and his conscience, very impressive. So, we'll have him on Monday. But for now, I saw something this past week and I got kind of excited about it, but not too excited because I'm going to have to take a little bit of a drive. But just this past weekend, and I should have talked about this on Monday, the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage kicked off. And as Catholics were observing the Solemnity of Pentecost on Sunday. So I don't know if this is a new, look, okay. I doubt this is like a new thing, but I've never heard of it until last year when I became Catholic, right? All of a sudden it's like, oh, it's this huge thing that goes around the entire nation. It's going to stop at all these different shrines, cathedrals, parishes, cultural sites, parks, and the faithful in the area will have a chance to join in the national event and participate in mass, adoration, devotions, fellowship, and accompany the Eucharist onto the streets as part of the pilgrimage. So I wanted to ask you, Ed, have you ever done one of those?
I have not, but I'm looking forward to this one. It is going to be very active in the area that I live. It's going to go through several towns that are very close to me. But I know you being a convert, you're not as familiar with these, but uh, Eucharistic conferences or congresses have been around for quite a long time. They've been done on a diocesan level, a national level, and also a international level. And I'm sure that some of that stuff, Eucharistic Congress or Eucharistic Conference stuff, will make its way to our Old Relics with Old Relics segment, because I do have some memorabilia from similar events that have taken place from the turn of the last century and around the 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, from cities like Chicago and New York, Indianapolis, a bunch of other places. I think I do have some stuff from some international events as well. But uh, I love it. It's amazing when you see this kind of stuff happen. There are people that when they see, like, 'cause of course there'll be a Eucharistic procession that'll go along with this, and I'll be participating that in our area here as they go through. And um, it's interesting to see the reaction of people who aren't Catholic or who have just a very marginal understanding of what it is to be Catholic. But usually the reaction is one of, it's curiosity, but also there's a little bit of respect. I've seen several videos of churches in New York City, and some of them in some nasty areas in New York City, that have had Eucharistic processions, and you'll see just people stop what they're doing. And you're talking New York City, you're talking about thousands of people are viewing this, and they know something's going on. They know something important's going on. And then you'll see people who are Catholic, or maybe at least uh, are familiar with what it is to be Catholic
Catholic-ish.
and what we believe about the Eucharist, and you'll see people lining the street, kneeling down, and things like that. So I look forward to it. I think it's such a great um, venue for us to show our Catholic faith out in the open and to the world, and have people start asking questions about what it is to be Catholic, and what do we mean when we say that the Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith. So I'm excited about it. Have I participated? Because you asked a very simple question and I went on tirade, but have I participated
We got
in
51 minutes
one of
left to
these
fill. I'm
major
okay with
events?
it.
I have not. I've been I've been in Eucharistic processions that went
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
one
I've
parish
done
to
that
another and
because
things like that.
we do it.
But something on
We
this
do Eucharistic
scale
processions
where I could potentially
at our Feast
walk
of
for
Corpus
several
Christi.
miles.
Yeah. Okay. I was saying, we did the
Yeah, Corpus
Eucharistic
Christi, there was
procession
actually
at the Feast of
in
Corpus
one of the
Christi,
parishes
and
I'm
there's a
hanging out
weird
at,
delay. It's
we had
making me
a
mad
major
now.
to do about 3 years ago, 4 years ago on Feast of Corpus Christi, and we had a Eucharistic procession that ended with me giving a big talk about Eucharistic miracles, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm assuming there's still going to be a delay, but I'm gonna push through this because the recording seems to work fine. But no, we've got the Feast of Corpus Christi coming up soon. I think it was like my second or third mass ever at my parish, and uh, was the Feast of Corpus Christi. So it was very interesting because I have a very large parish. We've got like 13 buildings because there's the school that's attached to the parish. Then we've got the parish house, the parish activity center. We've got the library. We've got the main, church hall. Our adoration chapel is built onto the church, but it's a pretty good sized campus, and we usually start in the church, and then we proceed outside, and then there's the Eucharistic procession. It's usually after the end of the Corpus Christi Mass, and then we go to all of the stations around, and then process back into the church for a final benediction and all that. And I'm sure the people that are living just across the street from the church are staring out their windows, going, "Ah, those crazy Catholics are at it again. Here we go. Let me close the blinds, honey. The papists are outside again." It's probably that kind of thing. But I have noticed the same things. Um, for example, you see the pilgrimage that just went to um, the Chartres Cathedral in France. The 3-day walking pilgrimage from Paris. Candace Owens was there. I saw a couple of photos of her there. You don't ever hear any reports of anyone trying to be disrespectful or disrupt the procession, uh, mess with the pilgrims, anything like that. And it makes me think of a couple of months ago when I was still in RCIA. Uh, the teacher that night is also a teacher at the Catholic high school here, and he was talking about, because he's a convert as well, but he was talking about the first time he ever walked into the Adoration Chapel. He wasn't sure whether or not he believed or anything like that. He's like 25 in college, and he went through that weirdo "I'm spiritual" phase. He went like Buddhist to whatever naturalist, spiritualist thing, and then because his parents were like super duper evangelical, um, like hardcore evangelist kind of parents. And he ended up coming to the Catholic Church when he was almost 30. But he said when he walked into the Adoration Chapel for the first time, he just he had no idea what he was supposed to do. What He didn't even know the Eucharist was up there. He was like, "What's this room?" and walked in there. And he said there was like a handful of people in there, and they were all silent. They were either praying or reading the Bible. And he said, I just felt something that was weird. And I was, whoa, what is this? He said, I don't know what it was, but there was something. And I felt it, you felt it, anybody that's ever been in an adoration chapel or part of a Eucharistic procession knows exactly what I'm talking about. And that's why I am not surprised that when you see these pilgrimages or these processions, just like this nationwide Eucharistic procession that took off on Sunday, are are never really interrupted, hassled, bothered. You don't hear anything negative like, oh well, someone went over there and started throwing bottles and being this. You never hear anything like that. It's like they just know there's something. And it could be a mix of fascination and curiosity. Uh, but I do think for the most part, they they know there's something, even if they're not sure what. And so they just kind of stand there in almost an involuntary reverence. You know, this one is not coming past my house, but it is within a, just looking at the map, I'm going to say it's within a 3 hour drive. I have to go to Georgia for this. Um, and it started right there in Texas, and it's going to go up, and it's going to hit out towards Jersey, and then hit up the whatever the Michigan area. I always do this for the mitten, but and then finally head all the way out, ending in California, I believe. And I got to make the trip, even if it's just for a couple of hours, just to see that many people collectively in unity, in faith with the Eucharist. It's definitely an experience. Um, but yeah, you don't see anybody being disrespectful to any of the pilgrims walking with the Eucharist. You never see anybody trying to bother it. People that would otherwise cuss you out online because you're a filthy papist, step back, be silent, and just stare. And it's almost like it's involuntary. They can't help it. Like their soul knows there's something there, even if they're not willing to articulate it or accept it up here yet. There's very clearly a delay.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's the weather, I'm telling you. But, yeah, it's gonna be like the Catholic version of Hands Across America, which I'm sure was before your time, but I remember it very clearly.
I I've heard of Hands Across America, but I don't know exactly when that took place. I'm assuming the 80s.
Yeah, something like
Oh
that.
yeah,
I don't
it was
you know what? I'm
1986.
embarrassed to say that I don't even remember what we were. Oh, okay. So I was only in my 60s at that point.
But yeah, what do we have coming up too? The World Youth Day celebration is coming up as well. Now, that is something I would want to see. I'm obviously not a youth anymore, but it would be really awesome to go and see that. Uh, it's so weird when I look at all of these things coming up, and obviously they didn't just start this year. It's like, oh, you know what? Jeff's Catholic now. Let's get all these things started. When you actually become Catholic and you start looking at, the things that are going on within the church, there's literally something every single day. And before you were Catholic, unless you knew Catholics, you had no idea, or listened to Catholic radio or watch Catholic media. You have literally no idea what's going on. I wonder why that is. They talk about every other denomination or other faiths, holidays or events or things. Those things make national news headlines, even if it's just for like a 5-minute clip. Oh, so when they're celebrating this today, you don't hear nothing about the Catholics unless the Pope makes a big splash on 60 Minutes. Then it's everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about. You know, we joke about my age, but when I was a kid, we were just at the tail end of a period where uh, Catholic events and Catholic personality the airwaves. In fact, I still remember watching Fulton Sheen on the weekends with my parents. I was alive for the end of his run on TV. I mean, this is a guy who here he's a Catholic bishop, and he had the number one rated Saturday night TV show. It's crazy when you think about it. The millions, the tens of millions of people that would tune in to watch a Catholic bishop basically read him the riot act on a Saturday night because Bishop Fulton Sheen he fired up. But but if you go back further than that, if you look at the movies of the 30s and 40s, 50s into the 60s, there were so many, so many of the popular movies we know, the Bells of St. Mary's and uh, Boys Town, and all these things. These were Catholic movies with famous Catholic actors. Half of Hollywood was Jewish and half of Hollywood was Catholic. And even the Christmas specials and things like that that took place with guys like Dean Martin and guys like that who were Catholic, and you could tell by the sets and the songs and things like that that these were Catholic. So there was a time where, yeah, the in the first half of the 20th century, where there was a big Catholic footprint on this country, and I think I don't know. I think part of it is that we've gotten lazy. We don't really share our faith the way we used to. Um, but there, of course, there are other factors as well. But look forward to this. I look forward to this Eucharistic procession going across the country because it's going to, yeah, there are going to people who are going to have negative comments about it, but then there's going to be people who wind up with questions, and hopefully there'll be enough of us out here that can answer those questions for them.
Yeah, I don't see it so much as like, people are going to have negative comments. At least not in person. They might say something online because they're, 40-year-old teenage edge lords or whatever. But I think when I think of, like the old Catholic vibe, I'm like you. I think of like the Fulton Sheen show. Obviously, I wasn't born when it began, much less when it ended. Um, but obviously, I've seen the clips and stuff like that. I think I remember seeing it pop up on some kind of like montage of old classic network TV shows when they were doing like, oh, on the Ed Sullivan show through the years kind of thing. Um, but when I think of like the older Catholic movies, the Catholic theme movies, the only one that really comes to mind is Brideshead Revisited, and that's kind of like the quintessential Catholic film. Uh, I think I've seen it like 30 times since I became a convert, just because it's good. And I like watching the old black and white movies. My kids absolutely hate it because I've got every Humphrey Bogart movie on rotation at least once a month. Kind of the same thing with like some of the old Gregory Peck stuff. Obviously, Cary Grant. But it's kind of disappointing that the biggest influence that we were having in a mainstream type platform is Angel Studios. And this is not to say that Angel Studios is doing anything bad. They just did the Cabrini movie. It was brilliant. I took my wife to go see it in theaters, and I had that giant soda and I held it all the way through because I didn't want to miss a spot. It isn't like a 3 hour movie. But Angel Studios is a Mormon company. Now, I'm not dishing on Mormons. They're very nice people. I've met plenty of them. I've got friends that are, you know, part of that whole Desnat groupie dudes. They're hardcore traditional Muslims. Not Muslims, Mormons. That was not a Freudian slip, I promise. Um, but they're hardcore good dudes. But it's disappointing to me is that the Catholic Church is the largest singular denomination of Christianity. It's the original denomination of Christianity. It is the largest philanthropic organization in the world, donating billions of dollars every single year to various charities and foundations and hospitals. And like the Catholic hospital system is the biggest nonprofit healthcare system on earth. Why can't we, why couldn't we have taken on a project for positive Catholic Christian rated for everyone ish? Obviously, there would be some themes where they couldn't be. Cinema, theater, TV, movies. Why couldn't we have done that? Because if you look at, it's not like there's, you know, anywhere remotely near the same amount of Mormons as there are Catholics. And their movies are great. Cabrini was great. The Sound of Freedom was great. The Shift was great. I believe they've got a Mother Teresa movie coming out soon. Why couldn't Catholics have stepped up and done that? I mean, is it because there's some inherent automatic rejection by powers that be in film and cinema and Hollywood and all that other that are immediately going to turn it down and say, "No, we're not doing this. Can't be the Catholics doing it. Too much Rome in it."
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would love for there to be more actual Catholic films out there. Um, a few years ago, for a couple of summers, I was running a summer film series in our church, just something for people to do to come out and watch a good, wholesome movie. They could bring the kids if they wanted to. And I would bring the popcorn and peanuts and all that fun stuff and make it, I would show uh, previews and things like that. I mean, I made it a real fun experience for everyone. And I struggled to find actual, I mean, I have a whole library of Christian movies, but if I wanted to find a really solidly well done Catholic movie, I had to go back 50, 60 years. And I thought, this is just crazy. There's got to be somebody out there that's making really good Catholic content that's not 60 years ago, from 60 years ago, and not in another language with English subtitles. And it was very disappointing. I got to be honest. If anybody out there knows of really good Catholic content that's been produced in the last even 40 years, 30 years, I'd love to know about it. Comment and I'll track those films down and I'll show them to people. But yeah, I don't know. I that's a great question. Why aren't we producing good quality Catholic content? Because it would reinforce the message to actual Catholics, and I think it would answer questions for other folks who, and Jeff, you're on social media like I am, and there are some wild theories out floating around out there about what it is to be Catholic and what we believe and things like that. So if we put out some really quality stuff about, I don't know, the lives of the saints or history of the church, any of that kind of stuff, I think it would it would be a very good thing. I just, one of the ones I did show, you actually talked about it yesterday. You talked about the Cristero Wars in Mexico, in the like 20s and 30s. Um, and there was one that was very good. And I think it was Antonio Banderas, and somebody could correct me if I have the wrong actor, because I may. But there was a couple of big names in this movie. It was called, I think it was called For Greater Glory, and it was about those wars. And and that was an excellent film. But that even is probably from, I would say, the late '90s or so. I mean, I could be wrong. I'll have to look that one up. I have the film in my living room. I can check it out. But other than that, and showing how the Catholic Church was oppressed in the early 20th century by the Mexican government, I really don't know of a lot of really good Catholic stuff. Like I said, there's movies from the 40s, 50s, 60s with some big time actors, but I'd like something made in this century would be great.
Well, and maybe part of it is they don't know how to approach it because when you think of, hey, I'm gonna watch a Christian movie, it's um okay, it's probably gonna be B-rated production. Uh, you're gonna be able to see the glue holding Christ's beard onto his face. It's gonna be very poorly acted with people that you've never heard of, and it's kind of discouraging, right? It's like, who wants to watch that? It's kind of like when you watch the made for the church reenactments of the Bible kind of thing. It's like, yeah, I get the message, but yeah, I already know this. It's not really engaging even the kids you're trying to reach. And I'm not saying, oh, let's put on a show and make it exciting. But if everyone else can produce positive content, positive, entertainment media, and the Mormon church, which is one of the smallest denominations, can have a studio like Angel Studios to be as successful as they are, why couldn't the Catholic Church do that? And it doesn't even have to be like, you know, done by the actual Catholic Church. I'm not expecting Pope Francis to sign off on, a film diaconate or anything like that. But why couldn't Catholics create a studio like that and produce solid, well-written Catholic media?
Maybe
I don't
maybe
see
that's gonna
why
be
they
our next
couldn't.
project. Yeah, maybe that's gonna be our next project,
Yeah.
Jeff. I mean, it can be done. There's a whole series of films that I have shown to a number of audiences that are exceptional. And again, I forget the name of the production company, but it was basically one man. He's not Catholic. He's Christian. He's not Catholic. One man who wanted to produce films like that. And for his first film, it was called Flywheel, and the actors were all friends, neighbors, family members. Um, the taping of it, the filming of it was just it was very amateurish, but they showed it in a local theater in whatever town they lived down, I think in Georgia somewhere. They showed it in a local theater. They made just enough money that they could pump it back into getting some better equipment to hire some regional actors and things like that for their next production. And they've gone on and on and on. And like I said, they're a major player today. I don't remember the name of the company, but they just kept reinvesting the little bit of money they would make, and now they're making top quality stuff. And I think about like a film like The Shack, which obviously was a Christian film. I mean, that had tremendous star power in it. It was very well done. I enjoyed it tremendously. But again, I mean, it's not a Catholic film, but there's nothing stopping us from making good films like that. We should probably contact like Jimmy Wahlberg, Mark Wahlberg, a couple guys who are doing a lot of good things for the Catholic Church lately. Hey, you guys want to back us on this? Let's put out some stuff. Let's have a production company and put out some good Catholic films.
Well, I think we both know Jim Wahlberg.
Yeah, yeah, met him a number of times, and he wears my T-shirts sometimes, so that's good.
Right, right. So that would be easy to do. And kind of a sidebar, I don't mind acting. I was actually cast to star in Longmire, the old TV show. I don't know if you remember that one,
Yeah,
Longmire.
that's funny.
Yeah. I had auditioned for a part in Longmire years ago. This is probably 2012 because, it took place in Wyoming, but it wasn't filmed in Wyoming. It was filmed in northern New Mexico. And while I was living in New Mexico, it was like a 2-hour drive to where they were filming. And I was supposed to play a part of a temporary deputy on the show. Uh, but the funny thing is no, wasn't 2011. It was 2013. Yeah, 2013. Supposed to take the part of a temporary deputy on the show. But then I was moving to South Carolina, and I didn't hear back from the studio or the casting director, until I was 2,000 miles away, locked into a new job, and putting everything together to get this house that we're in now. And I'm like, y'all couldn't have called me last week. I would have postponed all of this, but would have been fun. Guess it wasn't meant to be. I'm here now, though. I think Hollywood stardom would have gone to my head.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've switched on a number of occasions to play a curmudgeonly old man. What's that? What's that?
I was saying that the
I'm saying, Jeff,
Hollywood
I've
stardom would have
been
gone to my
approached
head.
by a few production companies. Oh yeah, yeah, I'm sure it would have, but yeah, I think we should look at it. I think we need to. I think we have some phone calls to make after this episode and get this thing rolling.
Yeah, like I said, I've never met Mark Wahlberg, but obviously Jim was at the Marion conference that came down here in Greenville um, just last year. There's plenty of opportunities for something like that. Obviously, it would probably take 10 years to get going. I have enough on my plate. So, Ed, you've got nothing else to do. I'll let you take the lead on that project.
I'm going to spearhead this bad
But
boy. Yep.
you spearhead the bad boy. No, it's just it's the kind of crap I think about. I'm like, why don't we have Catholic? If we got a Mormon studio, why couldn't we have a Catholic studio? Why couldn't we put out good movies the way the Mormons are putting out really cool movies? You know, they're doing great with you know, the private funding of it and that whole pay it forward deal with the tickets for the movies. They're doing a great job. And I don't want to say that we need to outpace them. They're promoting good quality, moral, foundational films. Okay, cool. We can all agree on that, regardless of denomination. Why can't we do the same? And then, competition is the driver of commerce. It would make them bigger. It would push both. It would be great. It's like McDonald's and Burger King on both sides. They both keep get on both sides of the street. They just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They're not really competing with each other. They've got two completely different uh, angles, but it's the same product. It's good quality cinema with a moral foundation based in Christianity. It's doable. But yesterday you were saying that you were really having trouble with the title of the segment, Old Relics with an Old Relic. So went ahead and I did you a solid. We're going to find out what is inside Ed's Vatican archive.
Well, see, that's nice. I can get behind that one. That's really nice. All right, I
Oh,
appreciate that.
well, I
I
got so
was I
many
was ready to
complaints
say
from
something nasty
HR.
to you, but well, I have something very interesting. And yesterday we were talking about um and for someone of my age to remember what we were talking about yesterday is pretty. But yesterday, you were showing us one of your rugged rosaries. You showed the one that's based on the World War I design, which I love that one. I've got a few of those too. So I said, well, World War I and Catholicism, obviously I have something in the archives from there. And so World War I was just an awful, awful mess of a war. I mean, hand-to-hand combat, guys spending months in trenches and being excited after 6 months to take 1 foot of ground from the enemy or something like that. And of course, in any war, there are clergymen that are there. There are chaplains. And so, what I have brought in today is a medal, and this is a medal of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Now, uh, Our Lady of Perpetual Help has become very popular among all Catholics over the years, but originally it was a 15th century Byzantine icon of Our Lady, and there are many copies of the icon itself. There are medals and things like that that depict Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And so I have a medal that was worn by a chaplain during World War I that actually saved that chaplain's life because he was shot. But fortunately for him, Our Lady took the brunt of the bullet, and the bullet was caught and was stuck in the medal. The bullet's since been removed, but if you look closely here, you will see Our Lady of Perpetual Help, and you will
Yo,
see where the bullet tried to make its way through. Let's see. Let's do this for our studio audience and got wedged in
holy
there.
crap!
So Our Lady saved a chaplain from being killed right there on the battlefield. So this is certainly something that's in Ned's Vatican archive and something that I really treasure because it's I'm sure it was something very special to that chaplain.
I'm sure it is. Now I have a question. That is a very shiny metal. I'm assuming it's silver. To be from World War One, it looks relatively new.
Well, these are available at the gift shop in Ed's archive. No, these it's it's interesting because at this time it's it's actually it's very lightweight as well. People don't realize that it's and in the early 20th century, aluminum was becoming a big thing, and so it actually looks a lot shinier on on the camera than it does in real life. In real life, it's not this shiny at all. But it's I mean it's if you saw it close up, you'd see there's a lot of wear on it. But I also this isn't displayed or anything in the archives. It's wrapped up. It's protected. So it doesn't see a lot of daylight or air. But yeah, and if and I've actually found I'll have to get that information to you, but I have found the origins of this particular metal, and it does go back to the early 20th century when it was produced. So yeah, it's a good one.
And so that thing's aluminum. I mean, I guess I could see some uh feasibility in the fact that it flexed and it wasn't just like solid. I could see that since it flexed a little bit, it slowed the momentum of the bullet. And I'm assuming that had to be a ricochet as well because they were dumping some fairly heavy calibers in World War One. They're basically shooting cowboy cutters at everybody. But that's pretty cool. It's like I told you, I like little stuff like that. It, the little pieces of history like that are the ones that you don't find in history books. Like that story I told you the other day, um, about the guy who stepped on the landmine and his rosary had broken, and he would have died if the rosary didn't break. He would have gotten blown up. Those little stories that are
Yeah.
lost forever, they'll never make it into history books. There's millions of little stories of these super close calls or saving graces, or even just interesting little tidbits of the war that people don't any war that to hear because they're not significant enough to make it into a history book. That kind of stuff right there fascinates me. I think it's why I enjoyed the the show Band of Brothers so much. But I enjoyed the book, not Band of Brothers by Stephen Ambrose, but Beyond Band of Brothers, which was written by Dick Winters himself. It was his perspective, and it never left his perspective of all the things he did uh, during his time in the Second World War. Whereas Band of Brothers would shift like Dick's not there, and all these other things, because it's a very personal and unique perspective of the personal stories of what happened, in wartime. You know, and yeah, that stuff fascinates me. So, we're gonna run this show for years, and you're still not gonna run out of pieces. That's what's driving me uh, up the wall a little bit. Like we wanted to go through the entire Ed's archive. Um, you'd have to be bringing like 3 pieces a day. Every episode your show would be 3 new things, and we could just make the entire show about that. It'd be kind of cool. You can just sit here and run history lessons. But speaking of wars,
I'm telling
violence,
you, we've talked about it. I mean, I do have thousands of pieces.
yeah. But speaking of wars and violence, that's what's going to come down upon anybody that tries to mess with Ed's collection. Only half kidding. But we're going to move it on to our saying of the day. And I'm telling you what, I'm really not digging the internet connection today. So maybe tomorrow will be better. But our saying of the day is Saint Rita of Cassia. Now, there's actually a statue on one of the pillars at my parish of Saint Rita. And I'm not going to lie. Um, the story of Saint Rita is one of those where it makes you go, whoa, she was kind of hardcore. So she was kind of like, Elizabeth Ann Seton, um, as far as being like a wife, mother, widow, member of religious community. But she was born at Roccaporina in central Italy, and she wanted to become a nun, but she was very pressured uh, at a young age into marrying this guy. And this guy was pretty harsh. He was cruel. But during her 18 years of marriage, she bore and raised 2 sons. Now, after her husband was killed in a brawl and her husband had died, uh, her husband had died and her sons had died. And she tried to join the Augustinian nuns in Cassia, but she was unsuccessful at first, primarily because her family had these, kind of quick and close ties to the violence. It was at a time when you had these feuding families that would be, standing on each side of the streets in these, 13th and 14th century Italian villages, and they were, pretty much warring with each other. Now, here's the thing about Saint Rita, and it's one of the things that I can't quite wrap my head around. Saint Rita, when her husband was killed, her sons wanted to go and get revenge. Now, they were going to go and we're going to kill this guy. We're going to just, avenge our father. And Saint Rita begged her sons, please don't go, please don't go, please don't. And they wouldn't listen. And so what did Saint Rita do? And this is wild. And it's one of the things that It just shows you how interesting Catholicism can be. She prayed that her sons would be killed just so that they would not commit the mortal sin of murder and damn their souls forever. You're begging, look, this is their mom. She's begging them, please do not go and fight. Please do not go and try to kill these people. They wouldn't listen. And she's begging and begging and begging, please, please, please don't go. They wouldn't listen. Lord, it would be better for them to die than to commit a mortal sin and sever their salvation with you. That is one of the most hardcore things I have ever heard. And it's got to be one of the hardest things ever for any mother to even utter. I can't imagine that. So, what happened? Her two sons both fell ill and died of sickness. Now, because her family was so closely tied with this, I guess you could almost say it was kind of like Ed's neighborhood, with the mafia, this family warring against this family over there. And it was she was basically Carmela Soprano to them. She's like, no, you can't join these religious orders because you're too closely connected with these people who are violent. And it took her several years of praying and just being persistent before she was finally accepted into the order. But man, I couldn't imagine saying, man, it's better that my kids die than sin against God. But as hard as that is to say, it's still true. I mean, obviously, if they're remorseful, they can repent from their sins and be forgiven of their sins. But she skipped that part, I guess. I don't know. I mean, that does it kind of reminds me of the story of Abraham and Isaac, right? He's taking his son up to the mountain. He's gonna sacrifice his son on an altar for God, but he stopped at the last minute. Don't, no, 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 don't kill your son. You trusted the Lord enough. You shall be blessed. You shall inherit nations, and your descendants shall be as many as the hairs on your head. All that. That's what it reminds me of. But it's hard for me to imagine. Man, I would rather my kid die than go commit murder because that way they're not committing a mortal sin against God. It's hardcore, right? But it's still true.
Yeah, it's both of those things, and we do have similar stories that still come out today. If you think about, there was, uh, and I apologize for not remembering the country she's from, but there was recently the story of I believe she was a volleyball player in an Eastern European country, and found out shortly after finding out that she was pregnant, also was diagnosed with cancer. And because she would not abort her child, she did not receive any treatment for her cancer. Her child was born healthy and safely. And because her cancer had progressed so much during those 9 months, the woman eventually died. Now, people would say that's a very sad story. It's a very tragic story, but it's a story of selfless love. Um, so it's the same kind of thing. Is like, we've talked about that. We've talked about that the very first our very first show. Is that the circumstances that you find yourself in don't change whether or not something is a sinful behavior. And so, and again, I'm not going to, if someone's life is truly in jeopardy, a mother, I'm not going to second guess their choice of what they're going to do about that pregnancy. But 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 there are these examples of people who would say, well, listen, maybe it's not the best time. Maybe this is horrible what I'm going through, but this is a life created by God, and it's not for me to decide when that life ends. so I'm not going to abort that child. But it's the same thing. And like, here you are, Saint Rita, right? I'm sure loved her children as much as any other mother ever loved their children, but feared for their souls and for their salvation to such a point that she would prefer that they die before killing someone. I mean, it's not tough. It's not easy being a parent. It's not easy being a mother. And sometimes you will make some choices, some decisions, some proclamations that may uh, make people question your sanity, even. But truth is truth, right is right, um, and that's just what it comes down to.
Yeah. I mean, I get all that. And yeah, that's what it falls down to. Obviously, it was going to hurt her heart very much, like it would any parent for your children to die. But to be willing to endure that kind of pain, and that would tear me apart, as a dad. My kids pass away. I don't even want to imagine that. But to prefer that over over her sons risking their salvation by committing a mortal sin against God, being straight up willing, man, that's why she's a saint and I'm not. Like I said, I'm still hoping for the and companions edition. Just hang around some really good people. You That'll be as close as I can get because I couldn't do that. That blows my mind. And actually, it was the vicar at my parish that first told me that story. Wow, this delay really sucks today. Tons of awkward silences. You know, the pattern is that anytime Ed
And
has a humid day in New Jersey, I'm not even joking. Anytime it's a humid day in New Jersey, there's such a delay. I can hear Ed instantly. But if it's humid in Jersey, Ed can't hear me for at least 5, 10 more seconds after I finish talking. And apparently, Jersey Wi-Fi uh, can't cut through the humidity. Is what it is, I guess.
it's brutal. Yeah, I guess.
Oh, and see there now it works right here at the end of the show. So weird. Absolutely terrible. No one's listening to this episode. Just the delays alone. Everybody's gonna be like, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm gonna turn it on and listen to Mariah Carey Christmas albums and "Mary Do You Know" over and over and over again. What the good Catholics do on Eagles
She
Wings.
knew.
Yeah, they're
She knew.
jamming out to that in the car. Yeah, don't mansplain the Magnificat to Mary. Thank you. All right, we're gonna roll this one up. Hopefully, the weather is better in Jersey tomorrow. If not, Ed's gonna have to get his son to come up from all the way down in Philly and stand on the roof with the antenna like he used to have to back during the day, so Ed wouldn't miss the game. But we'll wrap this one up. We will see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully, the connection will be better. You guys have a good one.
Take it easy, everybody.